Long, long ago, before Zeus ruled over the Olympus, before Ra sailed across the sky, even before Enki flowed the rivers that give name to Mesopotamia, there were other gods. Gods without names, without stone temples, without priests delivering 2-hour sermons to prove why their omnipotent deity was better than yours. Full-blown human civilization with writing is barely 5,200 years old, yet that is just a tiny fraction of the 200 to 300,000 years we have inhabited the earth as a species. Before the great pantheons we know, there was a vast ocean of myths and deities that were never written down, shining in the fires of prehistory. These were possibly the invisible ancestors of Zeus, Enki, Indra, and Quetzalcoatl, because this is the story of the very first gods. The earliest traces of belief are not found on clay tablets or in cuneiform, they are found in bones. Dozens of millenniums ago, our ancestors shared the world with our other ancestors, the Neanderthals. Both of them began burying their dead at the time, but these were not ordinary burials. Beside the bodies, they placed tools, flowers, and even striking pigments, such as red ochre. It was the earliest known sign that humans had started to imagine a life beyond death. And where there is rebirth, there are spirits of the ancestors. One of the most famous examples comes from the Kafse cave in the Levant, where skeletons were found buried with ochre more than 90,000 years ago. About 65,000 years ago, there were burials, plausibly with flowers, although it could just be pollen contamination from rodents. In the prehistoric lands of the Levant, a Neanderthal interrupts a burial. Why put flowers on the bones?
Because it smells less bad if you do it.
What?
Well, also because maybe there's still life somewhere else.
Somewhere else? Where?
Up there, or down there. Just as the sun moves across the sky, our elders can walk alongside it. Just as trees come out of the earth, our brothers can enter it.
Better put flowers, just in case. Over time, these flowers became symbols, and some of the symbols became into a myth. The Lion of Stadel, also known as the Lion Man, is a mammoth ivory sculpture carved directly from a tusk, dating back more than 40,000 years and belonging to the Aurignacian culture. Standing at 30 centimeters tall, it depicts an upright human body with the head and ears of a lion. Its significance lies in the fact that it does not represent any real creature, but rather a hybrid being, a concept of something that isn't found in nature. This makes the figure the earliest known work to transcend the tangible world and give shape to the imaginary. Specialists have offered different interpretations, a talisman, a totem, or just a shamanic emblem. Yet the most compelling hypothesis is that it was an idol. The hard labor required to carve such a thing from hard ivory, and the fact that they let someone spend hundreds of hours working on it makes us think that it had a symbolic value far greater than that of mere ornamentation. If this Lion Man was genuinely venerated, it will stand as the first effigy of the divine in human history, a figure that reveals how these early Homo sapiens projected their perception of the world onto supernatural beings. For this reason, many consider that it could be the most ancient representation of a god. Besides, Paleolithic Venuses like the Hulefels Venus circa 38,000 BC or the Venus of Willendorf circa 27,000 BC indicate a cult of female fertility, a reverence for the apparently magical life that renews itself. In the caves of Chauvet and Lascaux, paintings of animals appear with ritualistic character, possibly tied to magic hunting or the belief that each animal had a protective spirit. Even the famous sorcerer of Troy Freya in France, a figure painted some 15,000 years ago with a human body and a deer's head, is interpreted by some as a shaman or a primordial semi-animal god. Or maybe, who knows, he was just a prehistoric furry. Perhaps there were no gods yet, but these were the first clear traces. Death, fertility, hunting animals, primordial religion didn't aim to explain eclipses or existential questions. It was practical, vital, and magical. Survival meant keeping the spirits of the forest and ancestors happy. And as humans observed, imagined, and prayed, the idea of superior, invisible forces, capable of protecting or punishing, giving life or taking it, began to emerge. But these were not the first beliefs, only the first ones we have discovered. Now we enter the realm of universal mythic motifs, or mythomotifs. These are stories that recur across cultures, separated by oceans and millennia. One of the most fascinating is the cosmic egg, the idea that in the beginning everything existed within a primordial egg. The sky, the earth, light, and darkness. When the egg breaks, the universe emerges. A myth reminiscent of the theory of the Big Bang. A similar myth appears in Vedic India, in the Finnish Kalevala, in China, and even parts of Africa. Another powerful motif is the one of the earth diver. According to this story, at first, the world was entirely water. To make solid land, the creator needed mud from the depths. An animal, whether a duck, a beaver, or an otter, was sent to dive down. Many failed, but one brought back a bit of mud. From this mud, the land formed, expanding until it created the world that we know. This myth is common among indigenous peoples of North America, the Iroquois, Algonquins, and Cherokees, but also in Siberia and Central Asia. And related to this one is the oldest one of them all, the explorer bird. In this motif, before the land existed, a bird is sent by a creator or higher force to fly over the infinite waters to find a place to settle. It returns with a sign, a twig, some mud, or a piece of grass. This marks the first sighting of solid land. We find this motif in Siberia, North America, and surprisingly, also in Africa and Oceania. All these myths share a common feature. They start with a watery chaos. There were no mountains or continents, only water. The strength of these myths lies in their simplicity. They do not need grand temples or named gods. They are straightforward stories, understandable to any human group. It is easy to believe that a higher power created the world. We have all seen an egg crack open to release life. We know the image of a bird seeking land or an animal diving into water. They are universal metaphors, born in a world of hunter-gatherers, yet so powerful that they survive into the era of the first civilizations. Now, if these stories were never written down or carved into tablets, how do we know they were real and not just the product of my always increasing delirium? The answer is similar to why we talk about a Proto-Indo-European language: logic. But in this case, the discipline called ethnography. Since the 19th century, this practice has focused on recording the oral traditions of people still living as hunter-gatherers or in very ancient agricultural societies. Anthropologists such as Franz Boas, Claude Lévi-Strauss, or more recently Julien Dewey discovered that very similar myths appeared in faraway places like the Americas, Siberia, Africa, and Oceania, and couldn't help but wonder, how the heck did they get there? If two cultures separated by thousands of kilometers share a strikingly similar story, there are usually only two explanations. 1. Independent invention of the myth by both cultures. 2. Inheritance from a very ancient common ancestor. The second option is more likely when the similarities are so precise. For example, the specialist Mircea Eliade suggested that the image of the cosmic egg, so specific and similar across remote cultures, was already part of the symbolic thought of Upper Paleolithic Eurasian hunter-gatherers, possibly 30 to 40,000 years ago, if not way older due to its presence in some parts of Africa. In the Earth Diver myth, there is always a primordial ocean, an animal diving, several failures, and finally success with mud giving rise to the land. The parallel is really strong, so it doesn't seem to be a coincidence. If the myth existed both in Central Asia and North America, it likely traveled with humans across the Bering Strait at least 15,000 years ago, and probably has even older roots in Eurasia. In fact, Julian Dewey applied phylogenetic methods, the same used in biology to reconstruct the family trees of species, to myths. He proposed that the explorer bird motif, found worldwide including Africa, could date back 70 to 140,000 years, perhaps long before Homo sapiens left Africa. All of this gives us an idea of how the ancient humans perceived the creation of the universe. The image of a creator being may date back over 100,000 years, and the depiction of the diver as an animal capable of a supernatural task, diving to the very deeps of the ocean and bringing mud to the surface, and the description of the explorer bird as a majestic or gigantic one, suggests that the first deified beings were not necessarily humans, but other animals. Unfortunately, none of this is written, and we will never truly know. As prehistory continued, general spirits began to take on more concrete forms, associated with elements, natural phenomena, or animals. Hunter-gatherers depended on the climate. Thunder, wind, rain, sun, and moon could decide life or death. In the human mind, each phenomenon had its own spirit. Humans place hope in negotiating with these forces to survive. Just as they bartered with each other, they attempted to exchange good fortune with rituals and offerings. Around a prehistoric fire, a young man speaks to an elder while watching the shaman doing a ritual.
Do the spirits really listen?
I wonder the same. I guess we'll find out tomorrow.
And what if they don't?
Then we might as well enjoy ourselves while we try.
That sounds to me like the shaman's just dancing for fun.
Maybe, but if we die tomorrow, at least we had a good time. Those were born gods of thunder, beings to appease to prevent the sky from filling with lightning, gods of rain, worshipped to stop floods from destroying homes, gods of the wind to keep hoods from flying away. You get the idea. And some even believed that a creator of the world resided in the sky. These elemental gods emerged naturally from animism, the practice of humans projecting forces and spirits onto the world around them. Between 10 and 8000 BC, with the advent of agriculture and sedentary life during the Neolithic Revolution, these forces became organized into more stable cults. This is also when the first temples appear. The oldest we know, Göbekli Tepe, circa 9600 BC. Although they might have been experimented with planting seeds, it was not a farming village, but a ritual center with carved stone columns in animal shapes. These suggest that temple religion preceded agriculture. Even before bread and cheese, there were gods in stone and sacrifices. At Göbekli Tepe, a young man speaks to an elder.
How did we move these stones?
With hands, ropes, and a bit of magic. Mostly magic. And if that fails, a bit of shouting helps as well.
That's why the gods look so happy carved in stone. They must enjoy all our noise.
As far as I know, you might be right. At the same time, ancestor worship intensified. The dead were no longer mere bodies, but active participants in life. In addition to offerings and figurines, humans began decorating skulls to make them appear more alive, giving rise to the practice of head cults, especially in Anatolia and Jericho. These served to maintain a connection between the living and protective spirits. Elsewhere, like at Çatalhöyük, daily life intertwined with devotion. The very homes contained small shrines, clay figurines, and paintings representing fertility, hunting, or community protection. The gods were now everywhere, present in the day-to-day life. Thus were born the first cults, the first elemental gods, and the first temples that marked the beginnings of organized religion. The first pantheons were emerging, though still unnamed. The mother remained central worldwide, but the spirits of the forests, rivers, and animals also had their place. Eventually the mother might have become Inanna, Ishtar, or Astarte, but she was not the only one. These elemental deities and mythic motifs, like the cosmic egg, the earth diver, and the explorer bird, were absorbed and refined by later civilizations. In Sumer, the primordial seas became Tiamat and Apsu. The wind and storm spirits became gods of the Mesopotamian pantheon like Enlil and Adad. In Egypt, the sun and the moon came to embody Ra and other gods. From Canaan to Rome, the thunder deities evolved into Baal, Zeus, and Jupiter. From India to Scandinavia, the sky god became Varuna, Mitra, and Odin. Even in the Americas, people who crossed the Bering Strait preserved these motifs. The explorer bird and thunder as a deity, reflected in the thunderbird of the Ojibwa and Lakota. The most incredible part is that even today, in the traditional stories of indigenous peoples, similar tales are still told, a Paleolithic echo surviving into the 21st century. These narratives show that historical pantheons didn't just emerge from nothing. They are a direct continuation of prehistoric spirits. We can imagine it as a genealogy. The nameless Paleolithic spirits are the forgotten grandparents, the Neolithic gods are the parents, and the historical pantheons are the grandchildren. By 3500 BC, Horus was among the very first historical gods to be depicted in art, though he didn't look like the bald guy I'm 100% sure the editor put on screen, but rather like a falcon. Around that time, Anu, Enki, Enlil, and Inanna were being worshipped in Sumer, becoming the earliest gods ever written down a couple of centuries later. And the rest, quite literally, is history.
So, is Zeus like a mix of multiple nameless thunder gods?
Yes, but with a toga, better mitts, and sexy. Written religion is about 5,200 years old, but the religion that was felt, thought, and told in the darkness of caves is dozens of times older. Before Zeus, Ra, Enki, or Quetzalcoatl, there were nameless spirits of creation, of the wild, of the oceans, and the elements of nature. Their voices still resonate in later pantheons, disguised under new names. The fact that we can recognize these echoes today is a miracle in itself. A myth we know now could have been told around a fire tens of thousands of years ago, and could now be hidden in an Iroquois tale, a Vedic poem, a stanza of the Kalevala, or a fragment of Mesopotamian scriptures, and that, in my opinion, is absolute cinema. When we see Thor throwing lightnings, or Ra sailing across the sky, we are not only seeing the gods of ancient civilizations, we are seeing the reflection of humanity's first gods, the ones that were born when we were only beginning to dream and wonder. We may never know their names, but we do know this: without them, the gods we know today would have never even existed. All of this made me realize something, that the Imperium of mankind in Warhammer 40k echoes prehistoric religions and rituals. School imagery recalls the ancient head cults, where human skulls were modified and venerated. The Adeptus Mechanicus treats simple acts such as turning a generator on as needing a ritual, much like prehistoric societies ritualize hunting, farming, or fire-making. In many ways, the Imperium feels like a mix of a ritualized Stone Age and the Middle Ages, but with, you know, spaceships and dudes on 400 kilograms of steroids. Thanks for watching it all. If you want to support me, go to the comments and tell me why your god is the true and only one, and also subscribe. It has been a pleasure, as always. Oh my god. I am losing my mind. Show!